that is going to record our webinar today. So, all right, good morning. All right, so we're going to get started here now that we're recording. We are talking medication management, managing, tracking, and reporting medications with FAS. Again, if you have the opportunity to mute your microphone to limit background noise for everyone, that would be great unless you have a question. And if you do, feel free to stop me and ask a question, but we are going to do an open Q&A at the end where we can have any questions brought up and talk about the information that we present today. All right, so medication management tools in FAS. We have Med Plan. We have the VFD management tools. We have mobile treatment records, and then we have reports. So I'm going to go into each of these 4 basic areas of medication management tools in FAS today. And I'm going to go ahead and try to mute a couple participants we have here where we've got a little bit of background noise going on. There we go. That was helpful. All right. All right. So let's talk med plans. All right. I'm going to hop over to my FAS install that I use for demonstration, that we use for demonstration purposes. This is our demo install. And I'm just going to talk you through a couple of things about med plans. So what is a med plan? A med plan is a set protocol, predefined protocol of medication management, treatments of all kinds, whether that is water solubles, injectables, or feed grade medications. So similar to a budget, for a particular group that generates the allocation sheet, our med plan is, this is our plan. So a med plan is actually generated or created at the group level with every group in FAS. So after you create a group, then you will come to the Manage Meds tab under that particular group. And you will have, I'll show you an example of one that's just blank. So this is a group that has no med plan for the group at all. There are no items under the med plan. There are lots of VFDs that show up on this page that could be associated to the group. And so you have a couple of options. You can add med plan options, what we call ad hoc or on the fly. So to do that, you simply select a medication treatment option, whether that's a feed grade, a water soluble, or injectable. You select a specific validation type, and I'll talk about the details of that in just a second. And then you can add that to the plan. So I'm going to just simply demonstrate this with grabbing the feed grade med ALBAC 50. Our most typical method of application for feed grade medications in our industry is by ration. So I am going to select a ration validation and which ration in the allocation sheet I want to apply that med protocol to, and I will select Add. The alert box, the alert toggle switch here is basically just a switch that drives whether or not a feed grade medication is going to automatically be prompted in the order process. So you can have feed grade medication protocols in your med plan that are options but not automatically administered by having them in a med plan without the alert toggled on. If you toggle the alert on and you come over to order specifically for that group, then that drug automatically comes into the feed order in the medication option box for that particular group. If you have that toggled off and you come over, it is not automatically prompted in, but then is something that you can add when you're ready to implement it. You can turn it on. So just nuts and bolts basics, that's how you add a med plan item to a group. Now there are other validation types that you can utilize in our med plan. We have days to feed, budget age, and budget weight in addition to ration. And the easiest way to understand this information is we give you basically a high-level status of the group right here on the Med Plan page. So this particular group is 66 days on feed, days of feed. It is approximately 71 days old in age, days since weaning. The current weight break of the ration that the group is on is at 129 pounds, and the current ration is F2. So if I'm going to select a protocol that I want to feed this group of animals today for a feed grade med protocol based on days to feed, I'm going to select days to feed, and I'll grab a drug protocol. And then I'm going to put in a start day and an end day. So if I want it to implement right now, I know that the group is currently at day 66, so I want to start on day 66. And if it's something that I want to implement, let's just do some easy math, say for 10 days, then I want it to end on day 76. Now, if you want to get really specific, that's actually 11 days because day 66 counts. So, but in general, this is how most of our users do utilize a days to feed. Very similar to that is budget age. Again, we select the age validation. We know the group is currently at 71 days old according to the data in FAS. And so I can say I want to start at age 71 days and I want to feed it until they are 100 days old, for example. So I can put that in and then add that to my med plan. For weight, when you want to implement something related to the weight, FAS has an idea of what the pigs weigh based on the placement weight when they started, but it really derives this by the weight brackets, the weight differences in your allocation sheet. So for example, the weight break of the current ration that the group is on is 129 pounds, meaning that the pigs should be 129 pounds when they're done with this ration. So if I'm wanting to feed this in to pigs that are on F2 and not past F2, my ending parameter needs to be that 129 pounds. I want to feed it through F2, but not after that. Now, maybe I want this to be something that we feed to a pig between the weight of 150 pounds and 175 pounds. So I can put that in there, and FAS knows when to execute that based on the weight breaks of the rations in the allocation sheet. So that's something, if you want a little bit more information on that and how to do that, get in touch with us and take a look at some of our Med Plan help documents that specifies how exactly that works with the weight breaks. So that's just ad hoc, adding items to a group's Med Plan. Now we do have a really nice tool if you have what we call a standardized protocol. You know you're going to use these water-soluble medications. You know you're going to use these feed-grade medications. You know you're going to use these injectables. And you don't have to have all of those as part of your plan. Maybe you only use Med Plan Management to manage your feed-grade protocols. Maybe you're only going to use it if you don't run any feed-grade medications, but you do some water-soluble or an injectable program. You can use it for any and all. You don't have to have everything in there. It's pretty wide open as to how you want to use this tool. But what we have developed is a way for you to create templates and then apply those templates to groups so that you don't have to build a medication protocol on the fly for every new group. You can actually import a med plan utilizing predefined templates. Based on how those templates are set, you will have some templates that are in a matched category for the group, and you will have some templates that are in an unmatched category for a group. And you can see in our demo system, we have all kinds of them in there to play around with. A matched med plan means that one or more of the restrictions set for that template matches all of the parameters of this group. So these are the most logical matches of predefined med plans that can be used for this group. But maybe you know you want to use one of these other templates, one of these other protocols. You certainly can by selecting it from an unmatched plan. This is just a way to help your users try to define what's the most likely protocols that you typically want to use in the matched plans. But if you know you need a specific protocol that maybe doesn't have any restrictions, you can also select that. So I'm just going to go ahead and select this days plan option. And what it's going to do is give me a preview. So I'm previewing this days plan template option, and it shows me that these are the feed grade medications that I have set up in this protocol. All of them, we named it days plan. You can name them anything you want to name them. All of the validations are by days, and here's the parameters, and they're all set to alert. And so it's going to allow me to import all of these. They're just all pre-selected, and I can say import selected, and boom, it populates the med plan for my group with all of the records from that med plan template. It's pretty slick and easy. And then I have a choice of managing or making changes of that from here. So maybe this particular group, since I know I'm going to feed that LBAC in F2, then I want to just toggle off, for example, this Thailand option that is at that particular days to feed range, because I know that's going to hit them at the same time. So you have the ability to utilize a template to populate med plan information, and then you still have the ability, once you've applied it to the group, similar to how you can manage an allocation sheet for a group individually, to make individual modifications for that particular group that do not impact your template. So where do we make these templates? In system administration, there is an area called Edit Med Plans. And this is where, similar to setting up a budget in FAS, you can set up your predefined med protocol options. So we can go into more specifics about how to add a med plan, in another session. But this is where you do that if you desire to set up the predefined templates. All right, so these are just some options, and I will just show you what this days plan that we just took a look at looks like in our Edit Med Plans. So here's what it looks like, and when you do create one, you can select some specific restriction parameters or attribute parameters that make that plan show up, whether it's in the matched or unmatched, depending on a group you're using it for. So we have a lot of tools here for you to implement individual med protocols for a group based on a recommendation from the site manager, your veterinarian, your nutrition protocol, wherever you normally get your recommendations of just the on-demand changes. And then you can also create a standardized, if you have a standardized protocol, using a med plan template under Edit Med Plans and apply that to a group. So that's how to get your med plan information onto a group. VFD management. So we know that VFDs are also a medication, but they take another level. They take med plan management to another level. So with VFDs, we need to make sure that we're executing on VFDs correctly, and we need to track them. So we actually have a specific menu called VFD Management in FAS by which you can administer your VFD medications. So there's two things that need to be in place in general to utilize a VFD medication in FAS, and that is the medication has to exist in the system and has to be a part of the group med plan, and there has to be a valid VFD in FAS in place for that group for you to be able to proceed to use that in your feed ordering process. So how do we get VFDs in the system? We've already talked about Med Plan, so we know a little bit about how to do that. VFDs can be brought into FAS a couple of ways. With the Input VFDs screen, that is a screen where you can simply enter information off of a VFD that has been issued to you by your veterinarian. Which medication it is, who was the veterinarian, who is the distributor. In FAS, that's the vendor listed on that. What farm or farms are allowed to utilize that, what premises off of the VFD, the total number of head to be treated. If the VFD was issued for a specific group of animals versus just in general, these number of head on this farm at this time, you can actually select a group and apply that VFD to a specific group. When you do that, it cannot be utilized for any other groups than just that one. So that is an option, but we're seeing more and more VFDs being written for a specific premises and the total number of head to be treated on that premises during a certain time. So it is, what you'll notice is there's no red star. Anything with a red star to create a VFD record is required. Anything without a red star is not required. So it is an option. In addition, the use days and the total tons, some VFDs do specify that. If it is, you can add that information, but less and less are we seeing those specified with the current format of how VFDs are issued today. The effective date is either the date that the VFD is issued or the future date in which the veterinarian writes a specific effective date. So if there's not an effective date specified, it is the date of issue. And the expiration date is always going to be specified on the VFD, and that would be populated in. If that VFD was written to allow for other drugs to be fed in combination, and the most common one we see, obviously, is a CTC Denagard in our industry for combination, but there are some other combinations that can happen. The CTC is the drug that the VFD gets written for, and then you can allow for specific drug options to be fed in combination with that, and that does need to be defined. All of that is utilized in the feed ordering process to validate the drugs that are being added to the order, either ad hoc or from the Med Plan, to ensure that use of that VFD medication is in compliance with the specifications of the VFD. You can upload a PDF file or an image document of that particular VFD that came from the veterinarian. And then, of course, the VFD ID or VFD number is the core ID number that is used for validating and tracking and documentation. So that's very important. So you can add a VFD by manually entering this information into FAS, or you do have the ability to import electronic VFDs through the Global Vet Link service. So we have an integration with the Global Vet Link service that allows electronic VFDs to be issued by a veterinarian that utilizes Global Vet Link services, and then those electronic VFDs can be imported into FAS once issued, and once they're imported basically into this screen to say that there are electronic VFDs available, you will click on the import button, and it pre-fills in as much information as it knows about the medication in the VFD. In this case, this is the first time that I have imported a VFD for the drug Pulmotil. So it needs me to define which drug that is in FAS, and in this case, it's the 181 gram product, gram level product. It's also the first time that I've imported a VFD for that particular mill, and I'm just going to say that's my, I call it ABC mill in FAS, where the veterinarian called the feed distributor by another name. So what this is doing is this is tying the information together, and FAS can then remember this for you going forward when you have another electronic VFD come across through Global Vet Link. that is specifically for that drug and that vendor. And then I can assign what farm or farms in FAS are specified according to the animal locations on the VFD. And if this was a VFD that was allowed combinations to be fed, I can specify that. And I just click import. And that populated all of the information, the effective date, the expiration date, all of the information, and imported an electronic copy into FAS. So I now have that VFD record in the system and available for use for the feed ordering process. There are some other ways to look up information about your VFDs using the lookup VFDs that we can talk about at a later time. It's just a way to find different VFDs in the system, but there's also the VFD report, and I'm going to go over that when we talk about reports. Another feature is the request VFD feature in our VFD tools, and that is when you know you need to have a VFD issued for a group of animals for a medication protocol, you can request it from the veterinarian either via email or through the digital integration with Global Vet Link through this request VFD form. This essentially pre-fills out the vast majority of the information that the veterinarian needs to know about that group of animals that you're requesting a VFD for, and sends them that information. So it makes their job a little bit easier, a little less confusion. Is a little nicer because you don't have to do it over the phone or retype the information. You can basically just select information from FAS and say, I need a VFD for that farm. It needs to be for pigs. It's for this ownership. And here's the number of head that I'm expecting to feed. And here's the mill that the feed is going to come out of. And so it gives them all the information that they need to know to issue that VFD to you. If it is not a veterinarian or you are not utilizing the Global Vet Link integration, it will utilize the email addresses from the veterinarian information that you have set up in your FAS install, or you can change to a different person in the clinic. So you can have more than one email address set up for your veterinarians in FAS. And then you would specify, which drug, for example, you need that to be written, and an effective date and an expiration date. That all goes via email to the veterinarian. You get a copy of it. You get a preview of it. And then if you're using the Global Vet Link integration, then you complete that information, and it goes and basically creates a draft VFD in the Global Vet Link service for the veterinarian to review and approve. So that at a high level is VFD management. How do you get VFDs into FAS and then utilizing them through the order process is the last piece of that, and I'll show you that here. So this is a particular group that has some VFD-related medications. Here are VFDs that are in FAS that could be utilized by this group. Now, in this case, all of these are expired. If it wasn't expired, it would not be in red. All of these are expired, and they have not been archived in the system. I'm going to go and take a look here and see if I've got another one out here that is not. I don't. But what this does is this will tell you when you're on the Manage Meds page under a group, do I have any VFDs available to utilize with my VFD medications that I have as a part of my med plan? If you don't see a VFD here, it's just a kind of a heads up that when you go to order that VFD medication as a part of your feed order, it's not going to allow that to go through until you have a valid VFD in place. So that's a big part of our validation, is that we will make sure that you will have a valid VFD in place for that specific VFD medication if you have it set as VFD required. Let's talk about treatments then. So once you have a med protocol applied to your group, or you have added treatment options as a part of a group med plan, Treatments can also then be documented on the farm through FAS Mobile. I'm going to pull up a screen for FAS Mobile here. This is just kind of what it looks like on the computer screen, which looks a little bit different on your mobile device, but this will be a good way to kind of show you what that does. So when I am a mobile user on the farm and I select my farm and then I select my barn, when I go to my barn or group level menu ribbon, there is an option for treatments. So if we go into treatments and we select that, the only treatment types that show up here as an option for that mobile user to document are treatments that are a part of the plan. Now, why did we do that? Number one, this kind of is a communication too. These are a bit of what we expect you to be recording for treatments. And if you treated with something else that wasn't part of the plan, then what that spawns is communication. That mobile user on the farm, let's just say they treated with Thailand in the water, water-soluble Thailand, and they go in here to FAS Mobile to document that treatment, and they don't see Thailand here. Then they're going to call into the office and say, hey, I can't put that in. What that facilitates is that, hey, they did something different on the farm than what we expected. So that helps you know that there's something different going on the farm than what's expected, rather than just waiting for it to show up as a record to notify that. We just don't allow them to record it until they notify someone that they did something different than what was a part of plan. Then you would add it to the med plan, but now you know. So then they would be able to select, they would come back in after you've added it, they would select that particular treatment, they would select the date that they gave it, and since it wasn't in there yesterday when I tried to put it in there, I'm going to put in yesterday's date because that was the date I actually treated. And then they document how many head that they treated. They can document the dosage level, especially for your injectables, but even for your water solubles, what was my dosage? So I did 5 cc's per 10 pounds. And then I can add a note, these were sick pigs. So I can add any kind of a note, and that goes to the office as a mobile treatment. So where that shows up in FAS is up here in the mobile events area. So here's your treatment record that was submitted from the farm stating that this is what they treated, and you can process that event and record that as a treatment against the group. So again, we have the feed ordering process to record our feed grade medication treatment protocols. And then we have the treatment records, which allow through FAS Mobile the farm people, the farm personnel, to record what they're treating with in addition to that on the farm. If you do not have a farm that is using FAS Mobile, but you have some other form of documentation for recording treatments that happen out on the farm, you can also enter that information under data entry treatments. So there is a way to get the data into FAS if you're not using FAS Mobile, but you just have it, say, on a barn record or something like that, where you can come in here and add those treatment records into the system. All right, so that is treatments. And then we have reporting. Reporting is, there's a couple of different reports. We have the Med Plan report, and that's going to give you all of your medication protocol and how it was executed, any records associated with the execution. And then more specifically, we have the VFD report. And that VFD report is going to show you specifically how you executed on your VFDs. Just to show you a quick high-level overview of those two reports, those are, the Med Plan report is under Global Reports. It is the 5th one down. and we'll get that pulled up here for all of our current open groups. This isn't our new report style, so you can kind of slice and dice this information however you want to take a look at that. You can filter it for specific farms, specific drugs, any of that kind of information. Taking a minute to load here on my a little bit slower connection, and I apologize. And of course, the best laid plans, you know, that's how that works. We may not be able to look at that today for some reason live. I apologize for that. Our VFD report is available under the VFD Management menu. And again, this is a similar style of report, but this is literally just going to have just your VFD records, all the tracking of your VFD records, and the ability to review the execution of the feed order records that pertain to that. I'm going to apologize. My internet connection for some reason today is not letting me load these reports, and I'm not exactly sure why. It might be with our WebEx connection slowing things down a little bit. But you can feel free to take a look at those reports in your system, or if you want a more in-depth demonstration, get a hold of our support team, and we will go over that information with you. So that was our high-level information about the medication execution, tracking, and reporting tools in FAS. I'm going to unmute the people that I have muted up to this point and let you guys ask us some questions or bring up how you're using med plans in your system and what that's been able to, what you've been able to do with that. So who out there has a question or a comment related to med plan usage? Somebody with a really poor connection, a lot of background noise. Who do we have on from Cactus? Hey girls, I'm getting a lot of feedback from you, so I'm going to go ahead and mute you. Okay. And shoot me a message in the chat if you want to ask a specific question, okay? Okay. There we go. All right.
I have a question, Molly.
Okay, Jan, let's take you first.
Well, this is Jeff, but, oh, I'm sorry. Did she say something at the same time?
Jeff, I'll take you next. Let's see what Jan needs to ask, and then we'll have Jeff, okay?
Molly, I just had a question on the meds that you, if you're entering mobily, how do you get that list into those groups or into that plan? Is that a part of a med plan, or do you add them to the group specifically?
Yes, so the only things that will show up in the treatment options in FAS Mobile are things that are in the med plan of a particular group. So if you are either manually adding items to the med plan for the group, or you import a med plan template, only if it shows in the Manage Meds page for a group will it show in FAS Mobile as a treatment option that they can record.
Okay, so if you have a feed grade med plan and then an injectable med plan, they can't both be imported, but you could add them to the plan.
They could certainly both be imported.
Could they?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So I have some clients who have a master med plan that has all of their feed grade, their injectables, and their water solubles all in one mass plan, because this is what we do. This is how you know what we expect to do, and they import that all at once and it populates into the med plan. I have some other clients who choose to have them separated and have their feed grade plan as one template, their injectables as a template, and their water solubles. You can import more than one plan against a group.
Okay.
So you can have multiple plans and you can import them, you know, but if it's a standard, less work is to have one master template if you're always doing that. But let's just say you have a Palmitil plan that you're only going to utilize with certain flows, so you might want that set off as a separate plan from your standard plan. Or you might have an injectable protocol that is something you only use maybe with PERS positive flows, and so you might want to have that set off as a separate protocol that I'm only going to use that with these types of groups and not every group. But you can import any number of plans and into your group as you see fit. So it's pretty wide open to make that however you want to do that. But the key is it has to be here to show up in FAS Mobile for those water solubles and injectable treatments to be recorded.
Okay. I need it. Thank you.
Good. Jeff, what was your question?
How would it affect the VFDs if your mill uses generic tilmycin or chlorotetracycline instead of, aromycin and Palmitil?
Gotcha. Okay, so VFDs can be written by the veterinarian that they can be written for a specific brand, or they can be written for a generic medication like chlorotetracycline. If the VFD is written by the veterinarian to be aureomycin, then the mill or the distributor has to use that. But if it's not specified on the VFD as to what brand, it can be any brand, any source of chlorotetracycline. Now that is more of a question for the feed mill to talk with their veterinarian about and get clarification of, but that is our understanding of how that is written and how that can be done.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Do we have anyone else with any questions on our medication tools? Okay. Well, it's 12:09. I know this was a lot of content and a lot of me talking. So if you have any questions that come up in your mind later, please make sure that you contact us. This is recorded, and so we're going to process this recording, and we will get that posted up in our YouTube channel where we have all of our FAS live recordings posted. And then if you have any specific questions, please feel free to contact us at support@prairiesystems.net, and we can direct you to some more specific information about any one of these medication features in FAS. Any last minute questions? All right, super. I am going to go ahead and stop the recording now. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you soon.